Alright, class. Alright, check it out. The goal for you guys today is for you to be able to add and subtract fractions and mix numbers with positive and negative values. Alright, so something you want to remember when you're doing that is when you're adding and subtracting fractions, first you want to convert mixed numbers into improper fractions. Alright, then make sure they have common denominators. Then you can solve them. Alright, and just to refresh your memory, a mixed number is a whole number and a fraction together, right? So 3.5, that's a mixed number. And then an improper fraction has a numerator that's larger than the denominator, right? This is the numerator, this is the denominator. So 7/2, which actually is equivalent, right, or equal to 3.5. 3.5 and 7/2 are the exact same value, but that's written as a mixed number. This is written as an improper fraction. So let's get rid of this guy. Slide that a little bit more that way. Alright. So first example. Alright, I've got 2/3 plus -1/2. Alright, before we can do anything to this problem, we need to find the least common multiples of the denominators, because you can't add or subtract fractions that don't have the same denominator. You can't do it. Alright? So, I need to find the least common multiples of 3 and 2. So, the least common multiples of 3 are, well, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, and so on. Alright? And then the least common multiple of 2 is, well, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, and so on. Now, the first number that 3 and 2 share, they're the same, right, that they both share, that's the number you want to use as the denominator. So, 6 shows up first in both of these. That's the first number they both share. So I want to make my denominators 6's. So in order to do that, we need to convert 2/3 into 6ths. Well, I said 2/3 equal to a 6th. In order to turn that 3 into a 6th, I have to multiply that 3 by 2. So then, whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. It's kind of like solving equations and inequalities. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Since I multiplied the bottom number by 2, I'm going to multiply the top number by 2. So 2/3 is the same thing as 4/6. And then this fraction, -1/2, again, I want to turn that into 6ths. So I make my denominator a 6. How do I go from a 2 to a 6? I have to multiply by 3. Since I multiply the bottom by 3, I have to multiply the top by 3. -1 times 3 is -3. So that means that -1/2 is equal to -3/6. Now I can start to add these fractions. So this turned into 4/6. -1/2 turned into -3/6. Now what I need to do, since my denominators are the same, is I have to add or subtract the numerators, those top numbers. Well, that first method I taught you guys at the beginning of the year, how to add and subtract integers, you're going to apply that same method to this. You circle the numerator and the sign to the left. There is none, so it's +4. Then you're going to circle the 3 on the sign to the left. Well, it's a negative. When you combine +4 and -3, all you're left with, right, if you have $4 and you owe 3, you're going to give that person the $3 you owe them. Now you have 1 left. And that denominator does not change. That number on bottom is going to stay the same now. So 4/6 plus -3/6 is equal to 1/6. Alright, next problem. I've got -1/5 minus 1/4. Alright, first thing I need to do. These are different. The denominators are different. So I need to change them into the same number. Well, the easiest way to do that, find the least common multiple of each of them. The least common multiple of 5 is 5, 10, 15, 20, and the least common multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. Well, I'm sorry. These are the multiples of 5, and these are the multiples of 4. The least common multiple, that's the multiple that they share. They both share that 20. That's the first number that they both have in common. So I'm going to turn these fractions into 20ths. So negative 1/5. I want to turn that into 20ths. Well, in order to turn that 5 into a 20, I have to multiply this bottom by 4. So I have to multiply the top number by 4. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. And then same thing with this. I've got 1/4. I'm going to bring it down. 4 times 5 is 20. So I have to multiply the top number by 5. 1 times 5 is 5. Now I've got negative 4/20 minus 5/20. Alright, now this is the tricky part. Remember, I said think about numbers in terms of the signs to the left of them. Well, this is negative 4, and technically, even though this is minus 5/20, you're taking that 5 away. So you could consider that a negative value because it's being taken away. So if you combine negative 4 and negative 5, you're going to get negative 9, right? You owe $4 and you owe $5. Total, you owe $9. And that denominator is staying the same. So negative 4/20 minus 5/20 turns into negative 9/20. Number 3 up here. Now I'm going to start going through these faster because you guys should know the methods I'm using now. Negative 1/3 minus 3/4. Well, different denominators. Got to find the multiples. Multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, and 12, and so on. Multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12, 15, and so on. The least common multiple, the one they both share first, is that 12. So I'm going to turn the denominators into 12ths. Well, I've got negative 1/3. I want to change the 3 into a 12. In order to do that, I have to multiply the bottom by 4. So that means I have to multiply the top by 4. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. And then over here, I wanted to change 3/4 into 12ths. Well, to go from 4 to 12, you have to multiply 4 by 3. So then I'm going to multiply the top by 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Now, my problem turns into negative 4/12 minus, this turned into 9/12. So I've got negative 4, you owe $4, minus 9/12, you owe 9. You owe 4 and you owe 9, so total you owe 13/12. But I never want to leave an answer as an improper fraction. I never want to. So if I can, turn it into a mixed number. Well, in order to do that, we have to figure out how many times 12 goes into 13. Well, 12 only goes into 13 once. So my whole number is 1. And since there are 12/12 in one whole, to get to 13/12, you only need one more 12th. So we've got negative 1 whole and 1/12. And since our improper fraction was negative, our mixed number is going to be negative. Alright, next one. And let me fix this so that you can read it a little bit better. Alright. 1/6 minus 2/5. Alright, first thing I need to do is find the multiples of the denominator. So I've got least common multiple of 6. Well, I've got, let's see, well, I'm going to do that in a different color. And least common multiple of 5. Well, least common multiple of 6. We got 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. I'm going to let that keep going. And then for 5, we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Oh, look. That's the first number that they both share. So that means I want to turn my denominators into 30ths. So what I need to do is I need to take that 1/6. Alright, so I'm going to take that 1/6. I want to turn that into 30ths. Well, in order to do that, I need to multiply that 6 by 5 to get 30. since I'm multiplying the bottom number by 5, I need to multiply the top number by 5. That's going to turn that 1 into a 5, because 1 times 5 is 5. And then the 2/5, I need to change that into 30ths. So I'm going to take the 2/5. And you know what, I think I drew that a little bit too large. So let's do 2/5 equals 30ths. Well, we have to figure out what number to multiply these by. Well, to go from 5 to 30, we need to multiply the denominator by 6. So that means I need to multiply the numerator by 6. When I do that, 2 times 6 is 12. Now, my problem was converted from 1/6 minus 2/5 to 5/30. Let's rewrite that. Minus 12/30. My equal sign in there. So now let's circle those numerators, those top numbers. Got positive 5, negative 12, or minus 12. You have $5, you owe 12. What you're going to be left with is negative 7/30. So that's our answer. Okay, next slide. Okay, now guys, I'm not just going to be giving you problems that involve little fractions. Sometimes you're going to have mixed numbers like you do up here. So follow along. We got 3/4 and minus 2 1/3. First thing you guys need to do, like I said at the very beginning, you got to convert that mixed number into an improper fraction first. That's just going to make it easier for you guys to add and subtract fractions, especially when we start using mixed numbers and larger fractions. So, the rule I always use to convert a mixed number into an improper fraction, big times the bottom, add the top. Big being the 2, bottom being the 3, and the top being the 1. So, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And then you're going to keep that denominator the same. So 2 1/3 is going to be the same thing as 7/3. So 2 1/3, the same thing as 7/3. Now my problem just went from 3/4 minus 2 1/3 to 3/4 minus 7/3. Now this is going to be a little bit easier to deal with. But the denominators are still different. So I need to find the multiples of 4 and 3. So 4, I've got 4, 8, 12, 16. For 3, I have 3, 6, 9, and 12. The least common multiple of 4 and 3 is going to be 12. That's the first number they both have in common. So I want to make my fractions into 12ths. To change 3/4 into 12ths, I have to multiply the bottom by 3, which means I have to multiply the top by 3. That's going to give me 9/12ths. Then 7/3. I need to turn that 3 into a 12, so I need to multiply the bottom by 4, which means I then have to multiply that top number by 4. So now I've got 9/12ths minus 28/12ths. Now you just have to subtract the top numbers, those numerators. 9 minus 28. You have $9, you owe 28. What you're left with is negative 19. You still owe 19. And then you keep the denominator, 12. But, like I said before in the last slide, you never want to leave an answer as an improper fraction. Well, 12 goes into 19, it only goes in one time. So I'm going to have one whole, and it's negative because it was negative before. And, well, one whole is 12/12ths. But we have 19 here, which means we would need 7 more 12ths to make this equal to that. So negative 19/12 is going to become negative 1 and 7/12. If you wanted to go back and check your work, think back to this rule. Big times the bottom, 1 times 12 is 12. Add the top is, well, 12 plus 7 is 19. There you go. So you did it right. Number 2. Let's say I give you negative 1 1/2 plus negative 6/5. Alright, first thing I need to do, change that mixed number into an improper fraction. So I'm going to take big times the bottom, which is 2, add the top, and I get 3. So negative 1.5 is going to turn into negative 3 halves. Alright, I move that number into the numerator's position. And again, now I've got negative 3 halves plus negative 6 fifths. Find the multiples of 2 and 5. Multiples of 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. Multiples of 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on. The first one they share is going to be 10. So that means my denominators are going to be turned into tens. To go from negative 3 halves into tenths, I need to multiply the top and bottom by 5. That's going to turn into negative 15 tenths. Then I have to multiply negative 6 fifths by 2 on the top and bottom. That's going to turn that into negative 12 tenths. Now my new problem, after I convert these fractions into fractions that have the same denominator, is negative 15 over 10 plus negative 12 over 10. So we're going to circle those top numbers and the signs to the left of them. So we got negative 15, negative 12. When you combine those, you're going to get negative 27 all over 10. Well, got to change that into a mixed number. Don't want to just leave it as an improper fraction. Well, let's see. 10 goes into 27. It only goes in twice. So my whole number is negative 2. But if I have 2 wholes, and these are tenths, that must mean I have 20 tenths. But I have to get all the way up to 27 tenths. In order to do that, I have to have 7 more tenths. So my answer is going to be converted into negative 2 and 7 tenths. And if you want to go back and check your work, do it. Big times the bottom is 20, add the top is 27. That's exactly right. And for the last slide, get that out of the way. We got negative 2 sevenths plus 1 1/5. Pause the video. I want to see if you can get this one. Alright? Try, really try, guys, and then I'll be right back to work it out. Alright, hopefully you paused the video and gave it a shot. First thing we need to do here, sorry, I'm not going to use all those colors. 1 1/5, we got to convert that into an improper fraction. So, told you the rule, big times bottom, add the top. I'm going to do 1 times the bottom, which is 5, which equals 5. At the top, which is a 1, 5 plus 1 is 6. So now my problem is going to turn into negative 2 sevenths. Let's rewrite this over here. Negative 2 sevenths plus 6 fifths. Alright. Well, I can't just add these fractions because the denominators are different. So I need to find the multiples of 5 and 7. LCM of 7. We got 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, okay, and so on. Alright, now, multiples of 5. Write that in there. LCM. 5 is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Finally, I got to my least common multiple. The first number to show up for both of them is 35, so that's the number I'm going to use for my denominator. Alright, now I got negative 2 sevenths. Got to turn that into 35ths. So, I'm going to write up here, and I'm going to move this down here so that I'm not leaning all the way into the screen. Let's do negative 2 sevenths. I want to convert that into 35ths. Well, in order to do that, let me get this marker out. To go from 7 to 35, got to multiply by 5. Then I got to do the same thing to the top. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. So, well, that's dying. Ooh, negative 10 fifths, or sorry, negative 10 over 35. And then I have to change the 6 fifths into 35ths. So I'm going to take 6 fifths Gotta turn that into 35ths. Well, in order to go from 5 to 35, I gotta multiply by 7. So I'm gonna do times 7. And then do times 7 on the top. 5 times 7 is 35. 6 times 7 is 42. Now, I can bring these down and I can add them. So, negative 2/7 turned into negative 10 over 35. Plus 6/5 turned into 42/35. Now it's going to be easy to combine these. I got negative 10 and I've got that positive 42. I owe $10. I've got $42. And give that person the $10 I owe them. All I'm left with is the $32 that I have, and the denominator is going to stay the same. So sweet, I didn't get an improper fraction for my answer. But you do have to go back and you have to check and make sure that this fraction is simplified. Make sure you can't divide the top and bottom numbers by the same number to simplify it. Real quick, for example, if I gave you 2/4, you could divide the top and bottom by 2. I could divide 2 by 2, and I could divide 4 by 2, which would turn 2/4 into, well, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. That would turn 2/4 into 1/2. So, let's think real fast. Can we divide 32 and 35 by the same number? 1, 4, 9. I can't think of any. Alright, and hopefully you couldn't think of any either, because that is going to be our answer in its most simplified form. So, I know this was a lot to take in class, but come ready on Monday, alright, and get ready to do some problems like this. Alright, see you. Hope you're having a good night.